Why are we building the tank? I think it's important to remember the people that died in the First World War. I mean, it was like 18 million that died. The tank, yeah, great British invention. Great British invention. Yeah, it was designed and built initially in Lincoln, here in the shadow of the cathedral, which is only, what, about 25 miles from me.
It was in the White Hart Hotel, just a few yards from Lincoln Cathedral, in a room now known as the Tank Room, where two engineers changed the course of a war. And Guy's been doing a bit of homework.
War was at a bit of a stalemate. Trench warfare had taken hold.
In just the first 5 months of the war, over 1 million soldiers died on the battlefield.
As soon as you got out of the trench, get wrapped up in the barbed wire and then get shot by a machine gun. Look at the bloody state of that, hey?
By the start of 1915, many people had reached the conclusion that the only way to break deadlock in the trenches would be using some sort of armoured vehicle. The French and the Russians were already experimenting with enormous battlefield machines. Unsurprisingly, neither the French Boireau or the Russian Lebedenko ever got beyond the prototype stage. In Britain, though, the concept had a very influential champion.
The boy was Winston Churchill. He was First Lord of the Admiralty. He's been off the pies there. Churchill started listening to these officers that were saying, look, we need some sort of armoured vehicle to get over the trenches, something to get over the barbed wire.
In February 1915, Churchill formed the Landships Committee to develop an armoured vehicle for use on the Western Front. By June, the committee had awarded the contract to design and build a prototype to an agricultural machinery company in Lincoln called William Foster & Co., because they had extensive experience in building vehicles which worked on rough ground.
And I suppose that a benefit of it being in Lincolnshire, it was sort of out of the way, and it'd keep the job secretive.
The two men charged with creating a weapon to win the war were Foster's boss and chief designer William Tritton and renowned engineer Walter Wilson.
This is the room where they came up with the idea of the tank. Yeah, they'd just be working away, coming up with ideas, chucking any bad ideas on the fire, and then taking any good ideas back down the road to see what they could come up with.
After just 3 months, in September 1915, they had built the world's first tank.
There we go, little Willie.
The officially titled No. 1 Lincoln machine was nicknamed Little Willie, as that's how the British tabloid press insultingly referred to the German Crown Prince Wilhelm.
It was flawed, top-heavy, wouldn't go over trenches. But it's, you've got to start somewhere, haven't you? You're not going to hit the nail on the head at the first bite of the cherry. So that would be more time spent in here. And there we got to Big Willie. Is that a goat or a dog in the background?
Big Willie became the Mark I, which went into production in February 1916. And that became the first ever tank to see combat at the Somme on September 15th. 49 tanks were available, but only 30 reached the British front line, and only 8 reached their final objectives. The Mark I's armour was thin and offered little protection to anything more than small arms fire.
So that was a massive failure, but it scared the shit out of the Germans. As it would do. What else? There was nothing else like that. Nothing else.
Despite the problems, the Secretary of State for War, David Lloyd George, saw the potential of this new weapon and confirmed an order for 1,000 tanks. The Mark II and III versions were only ever built for training. The Mark IV, with its better armour and redesigned hull, was to become the workhorse of the tank corps for the rest of the war. Production of Mark IVs at Foster's and other tank factories around Britain went into overdrive.